Hey guys, it's Dylan from the BYU racing team, and this tutorial is just going to quickly go over how to use the BYU supercomputer to be able to quickly and effectively iterate over different designs in a full car context. If we want to look at the full car rate, it is an approximately 10 million cell mesh, which means that it's going to take a long time to run on your local machine or a CADM computer, and we don't want to wait a very long time if we want to iterate through a bunch of different designs. So in this tutorial, I'm just going to quickly go over this is an example rear wing component where we have a couple different airfoils and an end plate design that's just roughly cut. There are some potential losses because the high pressure air, right, wants to flow over to the low pressure region. And so especially at the rear wing, you get these large vortexes that will come off of these end plates and induce a lot of drag. So here I have modeled just a couple quick, that one probably is not going to work, but a quick few end plate changes that could potentially help mitigate that rollover effect. So to bring these into the supercomputer, we need to pull them off of Onshape or whatever CAD package you're using if you're using SolidWorks or Autodesk, an Autodesk product. But for Onshape, we just right click onto the part itself. And actually, I should rename these. You can hit, fun fact, you can hit Shift N when you're selecting something to then rename the part. That way, now that part name matches my part studio, so I'm not getting confused when I bring these in, so I can export it. You'll want to just take it as a parasolid. That's it's just a CAD format that just works, and you want to download. So we'll just export and then give it a second. And this is great, so I'll just save it here. And we'll just go through and we'll just continue to do so. I know this is exhilarating stuff. We very well might just cut out this from our tutorial. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of you on shape. And yeah, so you could technically do all of these different changes in STAR-CCM's CAD package manager thing, but I prefer to just do it all here. It's a lot more simple, straightforward, and you can have a lot more fidelity. Also, I would recommend putting this in a branch and then just having one single part and changing each branch. However, I'm leaving for the summer. I'm trying to get this done really quickly. And so, as a just how it ended up happening with time and reservations, I've got a studio to record in. And so, I'm doing this all in one version and just doing several different parts. I would not recommend this because then you have a bunch of random parts that you don't want anymore that you would then need to go in and delete after you're done with the study. So, if you create a version and just branch and then version a bunch of different times, you can just restore the version that you do like. And then once you've restored that version, you can then branch or merge that branch back into the main tree. And then you only have one part left over in the CAD and you don't have five or six or seven or however many iterations you're doing. But now that little tidbits aside, we now have all of our parasolids downloaded. And so we can go over to the Research of Computing website. It's rc.byu.edu. If you are a BYU student, you need to talk to a professor and get access to this. If you're not a BYU student, please stop watching this tutorial. It is not going to be helpful for you. But if you click here onto this button, or you scroll down here to open on demand, it will take you to the open on demand portal. Normally you'll be prompted with a login. I didn't want to show my login, so I'm already signed in. So we'll just close out of this. So this is our home portal though, you just saw. And so there are a couple different things you can go to. For us, if you want to, if for some reason you want to run a really heavy MATLAB script, you could, or a Python script, there's VS Code on here. There is a specific application for STAR-CCM Plus, and you can use this, and you can get a lot more power here where you can request more cores and more RAM. But for our use case, a lot of the times you can just get away with what's on the Linux desktop because you're not going to be, if you're not solving anything, the Linux desktop works just great. Now, in our documentation for the 2026 season, I've written a lot more, but you can get away with just using the Files Explorer here. So we go to Files and we go to Home Directory. You are then brought into this directory. So I put all of my sims here in this Racing Sims folder that I made, and I'll just create a new directory for this called Rear Wing Panel Test. Actually, I want to make this one word so it's easier to type later. Let's call it panel test for when I cdn. Okay, there we go. And now we have a blank folder here. But we don't have any of the, oh, bring me back, please. We don't have any of the files that will help tell the supercomputer how to run our program. So for that, I've created a group for all the racing team members. Yeah, you can go in here. If you aren't in the group, message me, I'll put you in. But here, if we go to slurms, a slurm is the way that you pass instructions to the supercomputer. And we want to run multiple jobs at the same time because we have a ton of different parts we want to look at and we want to check out several nodes. So these are all of the files that you need. You actually don't need this squiggly file. I should probably just delete that. That is just a duplicate file. So now there shouldn't be any confusion if we refresh that. So we need these three files. So this star submit slurm is the one that you'll run. And this one essentially says, hey, here is, actually I could open it up and we can take a look. But what it does is it creates a job. It says you're gonna run for 10 minutes. You're gonna check out one node and we are gonna give it 2 gigabytes of data. You can write these files so we can troubleshoot if anything does go wrong. But what it essentially does is it pulls, this is just some print stuff for troubleshooting. And then we go to here, it creates a text file. And then in this text file, it's going to look for any STAR-CCM, and then it's going to write them to the file. If there aren't any simulations, it'll just print out, hey, I don't have any simulations. If there are simulations, it'll start calling the other slurm file here, the worker file. So if we go back and we check out the worker file, this is the one that actually goes through and why are you doing this to me? An error occurred. Oh, stating so. This is the one that goes through and actually runs the STAR-SIMs. So there's a longer time on it, limit of 4 hours. If your simulation runs longer than this time limit that you put in, it will just give up and it'll just stop and you'll lose all your data. So make sure you set this long enough that you won't lose everything, but short enough to where you won't be stuck in the queue forever because there are other people trying to use the supercomputer, and so longer jobs will have to wait longer in the queue to get done. It tells, so the cluster that we're running our STAR-SIMs on is the Mary-Lou 12, which is like the workhorse of the supercomputer, where there's a bunch of different computers right in this cluster, all piled together into different nodes. There's around a couple hundred nodes, if I remember correctly. We're just checking out one node. One node has a maximum of 128 cores, so we're just checking out all the cores on that one node. And we're checking out most of the memory, not all of it, because it's honestly not necessary to have this much memory, but it doesn't hurt. And you do want to leave some memory left over though, just in case some crazy error pops up. There is extra system resources for the supercomputer to then log it. We're also checking out a license for STAR-CCM, and then again, we just have our stuff for printing in case errors go awry. And so then this is all printing. It loads version 2502 of STAR-CCM, and then it goes into this text file, it pulls which one it needs, and then it should, down here, it starts running. This is the command that actually runs the star, and it references this JavaScript. So that Java macro, this is the last bit, I swear, and then we'll get on to actually doing the whole star thing. So this macro is the thing that gives star all the instructions of, hey, this is everything I want you to do. So it'll clear any solution that is left behind. It'll remesh, because we're going to give it new parts, and I don't want to sit there and wait and mesh every part, so this part of the macro just remeshes for us if we put something new in. It sets the stopping criteria to 2,000 iterations. This is probably more than enough, but if it isn't for some reason, you can come in here and tweak it in this file and just increase that number. Then it'll run the simulation, it'll save it, and that's about it. And then you can go in after the supercomputer, you can set it to email you. I did not on this one, but oh yeah, wait, no, that would be in the slim file. Sorry. I don't believe I told it to email me though. Yeah. Here, if you wanted it to email you, you would just add a line here to tell you to email you. And you can look that up on their documentation. BYU ORC does a great job of documenting everything, so you can just look up these commands. Also, if you are curious more about how clusters are compiled and whatnot, you can come here to documentation, and it is in documentation. Computing resources, this will tell you, here's all the clusters, here's how many nodes there are on that cluster, and here's the total cores. So yeah, the Mary-Lou 12 has way more nodes than any other cluster. We don't have any GPUs on this node, but our workflow doesn't really need a GPU. So we just choose to use this one because there are so many nodes and so many cores. You don't have to wait in the queue nearly as long. You could also use Marilou 9 if you're running like a 2D sim and you didn't need that many cores. But then again, maybe you could just use a design manager for that. So moving back though to our workflow, let's take these actually and we can copy and move. And we want to copy them. And it's not going to let me copy them. What if I click it again? Okay, we will copy these when we get into the Linux desktop. But for the time being, we'll just go here to back to my profile. And we'll go back to the racing sims. And we shall grab final test. And here we can upload we want to browse files. We're going to grab all of these parasolids that we just saved. And we're going to open them and upload those files. And this should only take just a minute. And there we go. Now we've got all of our files that the supercomputer can now see. So if we go to My Interactive Sessions, we should be able to just grab a Linux desktop. If you change the number of hours, you can maybe get through the queue faster, but I've never had a problem. I turned it down to 12 just for fun, but there's no need to really change that. There is only an XFSE desktop environment. If you're familiar with Linux, cool, yay, you know. If you're not familiar with Linux, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. All you need to do is click launch, and then you'll sit here for a second while it pulls the resources from the login cluster, because there's a separate cluster just for this Linux desktop environment thing. And you'll just sit here patiently and wait. And so you can see here that I've gone and run just specifically the STAR-CCM portal, which we can look at while this launches. We are not going to create one. One thing I will say is I've always used 2502. That's what all the macros are written around, so I would recommend sticking on 2502. And you would want to check this advanced options, otherwise it won't give you that many cores. And you should remember to put GB. If you don't put GB, it'll give you kilobytes. And you get kilobytes, and you put what you think you should in gigabytes and kilobytes, your simulation or the job will most likely just crash. It won't tell you that it crashed, and you'll just be confused. Make sure you put gigabytes in. Now, our Linux desktop is ready, so you just click the web button, and it'll spin over. And here we are. This is where we're going to be doing all of our computing, more or less. So let's go to the File Explorer real quick, and let's grab those files that we didn't get earlier. So this is a base sim that you can just pull from. So we can copy this guy, and we can go back to mine, go to Racing Sims, Panel Test, and put that in here. And yeah, it's a big file, so it's going to take a second to fully move over, but not too bad. And then we'll go back to Slurms. We want to run multiple jobs, and we want to grab all these, and we're going to copy these as well. Please don't cut them or move them, otherwise no one else will have access to the files. And we're going to move it to Racing Sims, Panel Test, and then just place them right in here. Perfect. So now that we have all of our files that we need, we'll open up a terminal. And there are a ton of different commands that you can use in the terminal. I've written them again in our documentation for the 2026 season CFD. But the commands that we're going to need to launch Star are twofold. And then we'll need just 2 or 3 more commands to actually run the simulation files once we're ready. But for now, we just type ML, which is short for module load. ML is faster. And then STAR-CCM plus is the module we want to run, and we want version 2502, so we'll do /2502. And it'll just take a second to spin up that module and give it to us, but then once it's ready, we just type STAR-CCM plus, and then the magic will happen. It's very exciting, very exhilarating, you know. But, so, we can now create a new file if you were making something from scratch, but we're not doing that. We are opening a file. You have 8 cores on the login nodes, so might as well just use all of them in parallel. And we want to browse to our simulation. That's our base simulation here. And then we'll just click OK, and it'll run. And so a quick overview. Yeah, I should go over how full car sims are different. So most of the people on our team at this point have only run 3D part simulations. So we're going to also go over just how full car simulations work on the different regions. So previously we've had a region right just for your part, a region for our inlet, and a region for our outlet. However, if you want to look at each individual component of the car, those also have to have their own regions so we can create different reports for them and also give them different boundary conditions and whatnot because the road, right, needs to be its own region so it's moving back with the how the flow moves back through our wind tunnel thing and then far field. And then the wheels need to be spinning so that they can be moving the air tangentially around them as well. So we'll go over how that looks in a scene real quick. Let's just grab the mesh scene. Just gonna take a second because it used to be probably 100, because this was run previously on the supercomputer. There were 128 partitions for all the different cores, and now it's only doing 8. So it's gonna take a second to figure everything out. Actually, it's only, is that 8 million cells? Not too bad. There probably were some simplifications. I think I had it up to 12 million cells at some point. But so the ground, and yeah, let's get our regions open here. So boundaries. So anything that's self-intersecting, I had to set an arrow unite so that the measure doesn't have errors. So you'll see that there's this bodywork thing, the chassis, and the nose cone all kind of overlap physically in the CAD and Onshape. So you have to unite them into a body here. If we want to look at them differently, we can. Now we can swap the nose cone in and out, but you have to unite them here in Onshape. Otherwise, we'll get meshing errors. It'll get upset. And hopefully, if you ever see that, now you know why. But yeah, we have our inlet, which should be hidden, which should pop up though here now in front of the car. Our outlet is farther back. I don't feel like scrolling because it's going to take a second. That is the one bad thing about using the supercomputer is the visuals are slow. But it's a price to pay for your simulation to just run in the background. You have our road, and our road is not just a wall like these other things are. It is, if we go here and we look at the tangential velocity specification, you can see that it's specified as a vector. So when we go into the relative velocity, we can say, hey, in the y direction, which is this direction backwards, we're going to go 30 miles per hour. That's the speed at which we're simulating our car. Moving up, we have a symmetry plane going straight down the middle of the car so that we only have to model half as many cells, right? If we did this with a full both sides, we would then be up to 16 million cells, which would take about twice as long to run. No, thank you. And then here we have these. Actually, we gotta scroll back in so we can see these a little bit better. In, not out. I'm in on-shape mode, sorry. So you can see that these small patches, maybe we should make them a little bit smaller to be a little bit more realistic, where the wheel will smush down to the ground. Additionally, it also makes it a lot easier for the mesher to do its job, because if we came to just a teeny tiny little point where the wheel barely touched the ground and it didn't deform at all, what would happen is it would really struggle with that sharp change in geometry. And so this contact patch helps simulate the fact that the tire will smush to some extent. I probably said it smushes way too much, and I should probably dial this back. But it also helps a ton with the mesher. And that is set to just have a no slip, or a slip, sorry, shear specification. Then on these wheels, this is where the magic happens. So we have, instead of doing a vector specification of the tangential velocity, this time it's a local rotation rate. And so if we go into the physics values, we can see that the local axis, oh, they moved this button in the new version. The local axis here, right, we have a coordinate system set up for the front wheel and the rear wheel. That's not the same as the origin for the whole laboratory. And then we have it pointing in the z direction outwards, which you'll see how that comes into play here in a second. And then calculated that our wheel speed has to go at 66 radians per second for the car to be driving at 30 miles per hour. So, and then everything else is more or less the same. The rear wing, the rear wheel is duplicated, but it uses the rear geometry or the rear coordinate system. So, all that to say, that's how more or less things differ for a full car simulation. There are some other things that you should be aware of, but those are the main things. So, if we want to change our simulation, all we do here, actually let's file and let's save this as, let's call it RW base. just so that and we'll want to rename these right every time we import a new part. So now that's done, we can edit this CAD model that we've imported before by just right-clicking and choosing edit. And now you can see the car. So we've deleted off the components here on the left side. If you were not the driver facing towards the car, right? It's the left side. I'd use my hands there for a second. And then on here on the other side, we have our wheels. And you can see how these local coordinate systems were made at the center of the wheel so that we can easily specify spin around this point here. Makes it a whole lot easier than trying to find things out before in CAD and then type the origin in perfectly when you can just click on the surfaces to make these, and I'll link a great YouTuber's video who showed me how to do this. So if we want to replace the rear wing, all we do here is we find the rear wing import, and we just right click here and we go model reimport, and we pick the one we want. We want the base file, so we'll just click base. And it'll go through and it will say, hey, I found these bodies, they've been changed. Here's my old body. Oh, come on. Maybe it doesn't want to cooperate. Okay. Oh, it's already picked up what's what, so you can just click OK, and it'll handle the reimport on its own. Now we would then just update the CAD and close the CAD. And if we were to go here into the parts, it'll freak out because we've changed things. And same thing with the operations, it'll go, hey, things have changed. When the software goes to remesh, it will then look and say, hey, I'm going to remesh the subtract. Oh, the subtract needs updating. Okay, well then I have to update the arrow unite, and I have to update all these parts. And so it'll automatically do it for you. So you don't have to worry about all these exclamation points. Also scary. All you have to do is click save and wait. And we're done. That's it. And the macro will handle everything else. So all we have to do now is just go to the scene, now we just we file, we save as, and instead of getting the base one now, let's get get base first. Let's do curve next. So we'll do rear wing, curved, save. And this is really exhilarating stuff. I will stop showing you all of my clicking around once we find an import that doesn't match and be so happy, because occasionally that does happen. So again, we'll edit, and we'll find our rear wing, and we will reimport, and we'll pick the curved one this time. Click modified bodies. Oh, it worked well again. I swear, if we never have one that doesn't match faces, I'm going to be sorely disappointed. Yeah, you can see that's our old geometry. This is our new geometry with the curve. So click OK. That's great. Update it. Save. File. Save as. And then we want to grab, after curved comes fillet. And let's replace you. I'm assuming because the fillet is also really close, we won't have any issues. It's the step down or the rails that's going to cause an issue. Yep, again, all good. So we can just click OK, update the CAD, save it, and then we'll want to create a new one again. This time we'll name it rails, and we're going to cross our fingers that we can actually show you what happens when it goes awry. I'll be really, really, really sad if it doesn't. Let's see. Go reimport again, rails this time. Oh my word, it just works. It just works. It's just that good. Well, I might just have to explain it. Not cut out all this stuff, I guess. Once we get to our last one, and it also works, just simply. So what sometimes will happen when you import or re-import a CAD geometry is the re-import will be too different compared to the old one. So right now, STAR-CCM looks at, yep, it worked just fine. So it looks at all of the faces here, and let's say that I added like a fourth wing. So we moved these airfoils down in the boundary box right behind the shoulders. It would be a terrible decision. But let's say we moved it down so we could squeeze in a fourth airfoil up here. Or let's say actually we added in a slat. Let's say we added in a slat so we could get a higher angle of attack on these guys. That slat being new is going to make the software go, hey, what in the world is happening here? There's these brand new faces that weren't there anymore. And so you won't see it pop up in this neat thing where you'll just click OK. You won't be able to just click OK. It'll say, hey, in these boxes, it'll be in like, actually this one here. It'll give you something of, hey, there's these two CAD guys. And instead of being one-on-one where they'll match like this, they'll be a old and then some red text and then red text and then the new one. And you'll just click here on like this section, and then it'll want you to select the new body. So you'll just click the new body over here in this scene. There'll be a button underneath that says match faces or something of the sort. And if there are any faces that you need to match, then you go through and you'll click the respective faces and say, hey, this face that you didn't realize matches this face. Okay, here I'm going to assign them to be the same. And then it goes, oh, wow, thank you. And if there is a new face in this scene, like we added a slat, on the front, you would identify that face and then just tell it, hey, there is no matching face between these. And it will again be okay once you go through and you iterate through all the faces that it didn't automatically find were together. It'll be happy, and then it'll finally let you click OK. Sorry for just explaining it and not showing it. I should have made a really wacky rear wing. I'm trying to get this done in roughly an hour or so, so I apologize for not doing that. But we will just update the CAD, save, and we are done, more or less. Okay, so we have now saved all of our CAD. We've saved all of our SIM files. So now we get to not use this terminal. This terminal, now that it's closed out of Star, you get rid of it. It's been corrupted or something like that. That's how the grad student explained it to me. I'd rather just be safe than sorry. So we have to use our 3 new commands for running this. So like I explained before, you want to run the star submit slur. That's the one that's going to scan everything. So we go sbatch, or no, sorry, we go cd. So we need to get into this folder first. I'm using my hands. This folder. We need to get into the panel test folder to run this Slurm file. So we would go cd, home directory that we're already in is my username, so it's there. So we need to go into the racing sims folder and then the panel test folder. So we'll just go racing sims and then panel test. And it is case sensitive. Now, if you wanted to go back home, you can just do that and you'll go back home. So I could just cd racing sims. And then let's say I didn't have this up, I forgot where I needed to go next. I can type ls and that'll show me everything that's in that racing sims folder. And so then I go, oh yeah, it was panel test and I didn't capitalize the first P. So then I go cd panel test. And then I'm in that folder and we can ls and we can see we have all of our sim files here. We have our parasolids too. We have the Java macro, which we need, and we can check we have, oh, look, I have both slurms. So you can run pretty much all this stuff from the command line too if you want to. You don't have to go into this Linux environment. I just find it convenient to go into the Linux environment so I can run start and I can run the terminal at the same time and mess with my files and move them around here easily in a GUI. If you're smart and you can do everything from the terminal, by all means, just go for it. So the last command we need is sbatch, which tells the supercomputer, hey, I want to run a job using a slurm file. So then we go star submit.slurm. And we found the issue. What happened in my slurm submit file is that I was searching for files named a very specific way so that I wouldn't accidentally rerun things that have been autosaved. However, the autosave feature has been tweaked since I originally wrote this, and it would be nice if we were all allowed to name our files however we wanted, like I have done here. So I've altered the submit slurm, and now we should just go to run the submit slurm. It's created a job. We can look and see that it's running on cluster 8 again. And we can also see here, you can see my failed attempts. Oh, I need to kill that one. No! It's the one running longest on Rayleigh 12. So let's get rid of this. This was from an old attempt. That's not any good. But boom. So we can now see that that it ran the submit slurm. right? And it grabbed all of the necessary files, and then it said, okay, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sim files. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Huh. You go to simlist.txt, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How did it make a sixth jump? Let's see here. It didn't. Why am I counting 6? Because here's our login node, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I was just counting the one I deleted. Okay. So, at this point, now that you've seen all of them are running, there are issues with the mesher or with the Java macro. It'll take roughly 3-ish minutes for it to show up and to go, hey, I'm problem child. So, I would recommend waiting, sitting here, till about the 3-minute mark. Once it makes it past, and you can just keep refreshing here, or you can keep coming into the terminal every once in a while, just checking SQME and seeing and waiting for this time limit to go above 3. Once it goes above 3 minutes, it's probably good. You can leave it, come back in an hour or two, and it should just be done. And you can close out of this login portal and just have this open. You won't be logged out of on demand for about 12-ish hours, so you can just leave the tab open if you don't want to do authenticate every time you want to check and see if your jobs are done. But once they are done, you still want to see the files, right? And say, hey, how did this go? So all you'll do is just open a fresh terminal, type in ml STAR-CCM plus slash 2502, and then STAR-CCM plus, and you'll be able to look at these files just like how you did before. There should be one saved with the name slightly differently, just because of the way that the worker slurm is set up. Opening this shouldn't crash anything. All right, it's... Oh, wait, no, it's not the worker slurm. Num. It's our Java file. Where's our Java file? Come on, Java file. There we go, Java file. So if we look at our Java file, when it saves it, okay, I'm sorry, buddy. It'll just say your sim name plus autosave. So when you go and you open this, once it's all done, you want to go and grab that sim file plus autosave. You don't want to grab these guys. These guys are just your base files. They won't have new data written to them. It'll be your autosaved ones that will have the new data. So without further ado, now that we've passed the 3-minute mark, I am going to pause our recording and edit this down while it solves. And then we'll come back and we'll take a look at and do a quick analysis of how the vortexes have changed, potentially with one of the designs. Hey guys, so we are picking back up on the next day. I've come onto the ORCE on-demand portal and gone back to the jobs where we were seeing all of our jobs running, and now there's no data in the table. That means one of two things. Either the jobs completed, which is what we hope for, or they've failed and they've just kind of been wiped away. It'll only show completed jobs here for a few minutes. But if you want to see job statistics, you can go to the rc.byu.edu website, sign in, and it'll bring you to your account page. If you don't have an account, there'll be a request an account creation button here instead. If we go to job statistics, you can see all of the stats of all the jobs you've run previously. I am going to hide the login node ones by just coming up here, filtering jobs, and then say if I canceled a job, I don't want to see that. Just because most of the times on the login nodes I'm canceling, I'm not really canceling anything else unless I know I've set something up wrong. But so here we can see that these were the jobs that we ran yesterday, and we can also see that they were completed successfully, and then we can see the CPU utilization and memory utilization. So we can see that we were running about 90% of our cores that we requested, and we weren't using hardly any of the memory, but we're requesting all the cores, so we might as well request all the memory. One thing to say is if you aren't requesting all the cores on a node, don't request all of the memory on the node and just pick what you need.
That way you can let other people use the nodes and you can get through the queue faster. Additionally, you should never actually use all of the memory just in case if something crashed, they need a little bit of RAM free on the virtual machine to log things. So if there's 512 gigabytes on a M12 node, just request 500 or something about that sorts. And you can see that if you don't use all the system resources, it'll be flagged as red, or if you're getting close to the edge of not being efficiently requesting, they'll flag in yellow. It's not a huge deal if it happens every once in a while, but if it's happening consistently, then the Office of Research Computing may reach out to you and have a discussion about your usage so you don't waste all of the resources. So just come in here every once in a while and check and make sure that you're not using everything. But we see now that we did a good job requesting and all the jobs completed, so we can come back to the ORC on demand portal and we can spin up a virtual machine and then look at the results of what happened for our simulation. Okay, guys, so we are back now in the virtual machine. So we're just gonna open up another terminal like we did before and type in module load STAR-CCM plus slash 2502. And as soon as the terminal's up and ready, or just pre-firing, boom, you can put that in and then STAR-CCM plus. And yep, so it's the same exact way that we launched into Star before. You can also come in here to the File Explorer if you want to and look at the can I bring this to the front? The files that have been generated while it's been solving, we might not. There we go. Okay, we'll come back to panel test real quick. So you can see here that we have our like base file, and then we have a new auto-saved file that happens at the end of the simulation. Just in case, I thought this would be a better way to set things up. If for some reason it does corrupt or it doesn't work well, you still have this base one to go through and resolve, and it's not going to be overwritten. And we have 2 terabytes. Oh, I don't think I talked about file usage before. You have 2 terabytes on a backed up drive. That should be more than enough space, hopefully, for what you're doing. If you need more space and you're okay with possibly losing the data, there is, if we go back home, there should be a no backup folder here. And you can put information in there, and that has a 20 terabyte limit, so a lot higher, but it is slower and it is set up on a RAID 6 configuration. So even if there's no backup, there is still a way to recover the data, but it'll probably take the Office of Research Computing about a couple months to recover the data if it is lost. So preferably don't use that. If you can avoid it, just manage your file as well. But oh, not. So as you can see, we also have these files that contain errors. So if there was an error, let's just say on this worker array, then it would print in here, hey, there's an error. And then you would know that something went wrong and you can trace that back. Or there's also a .out file, which the output that you would see normally in STAR-CCM is what's recorded here. So you can see how we went through, it pulled the licensing, then it meshed, because it had a new part in here that's all the meshing output still, and still the meshing output, still the meshing output. And then we have all of the iterations, and now it's actually running. These are all the residuals and all the report monitors coming through, and then eventually, at the very bottom, it'll say that, hey, I finished, and then it saves, and it's done. And it records the end time too. So, you can use those for troubleshooting if you need to. But so if we want to pull, and let's look at the results of the Rails one, because I'm really curious about that one. We just open it up like we always do, parallel local on host, eCores. We can just browse for that. If we go to Racing Sims, panel test, and then we want the autosaved one, and just click OK. And we'll just wait a minute for this to load up. One thing, I have set up a couple scenes and reports. You're more than welcome, and plots, to change things as you see fit and update them to whatever you need for your use case. Like the center of pressure is the center of pressure of the actual arrow elements that I set it up that way. It's not set up for the center of pressure taking into account the wheels or the car or whatnot. So I thought of that maybe as a better representation from a design standpoint of, okay, I'm actually changing the wings. So I just wanted to see what the center pressure are is due to the wings. But if you wanted a final report of, okay, what's the actual car's performance? Where does the actual whole car's COP sit? That would be a totally different metric. But so all of those reports are here and they have their own little groups because there are a lot of reports if I were to expand all of these out. So I thought it'd be a little bit more manageable to just create groups. If you want to create a group, you just right click on the folder and well, new group, and then it'll create a little subfolder in there for you. And so our plots, you can see we can take a look at our residuals. These aren't the lowest residuals on planet Earth, but they're probably good enough. The X momentum's a little high. You see how they stabled out more or less. There is some oscillation, which means maybe we could go in and improve the mesh, but we're just trying to get a lot of iterations done fast. And we also probably didn't need to spend 2,000 iterations on this design. We probably could have gone to 1,500. We could see what the other ones look like too, but that would save us time. Also, by the way, on the I open back up. Sorry, I forgot to mention this. But you on the job statistics, you also have the amount of time that it took to solve these things. So we have somewhere between an hour to 37 minutes. So if we shifted took off 500 iterations, this would have all finished under an hour to a half an hour ish. However, I came back the next day to look at this. So if you're not in a time crunch, it doesn't hurt to just run a couple more iterations. So we can see here, we can go to our force plots and we can see that the overall downforce is 31-ish. Then you got to remember that this is half of the car. So the car is actually making 62 pounds of downforce. And then let's say if the car was actually driving at a top speed of 60 miles per hour, then we would quadruple that. So 62 times 4 is roughly 248 pounds of downforce is what we're looking at the package at top speed. So you can come in here and you can also see there should be one for our drag monitor all is this guy. So again, that's 14 pounds, 28 at 30, or roughly 96-ish pounds for the full package. And then we could also just say, okay, our ratio is 31 to 14. So that means we have an efficiency of about 2.2. So with that being said, we can also come here and if you are curious on just what the coefficients are, I've mapped the coefficients to their own plots as well. And you can also change these boundaries too, because like we're not really at 3 ever. It's just its initial solve. So if you wanted to make this a little bit more visible, you can just grab the left axis here and we can it's a little bit bigger just so I can see. I've already locked maximum actually to 3. Okay. I could lock it to 2 for the drag instead. Yeah, or even I don't think I want to go more than 2. We could go 1.5. And then you can see how it's leveling out. That is another good indicator of if your solution truly has converged, is if these plots really have leveled out. If they haven't, then we probably need to iterate through more. But it looks like over the past, 200 iterations, the coefficient downforce of the front wing didn't change by 100th place. So pretty happy with that. That's probably good enough. But so besides plotting, we also have our scenes. Now, the scenes do not generate super duper fast on the supercomputer. That is the one downside. If we were to run these on a Cadum computer, it would take roughly 6 hours per sim, depending on what we're doing, maybe 5. And then you could have nicer, faster, more responsive visuals. But it's nice to be able to run 5 of these in 1 hour as opposed to 5, each taking 5 hours would be 25 hours of sitting there trying to run sims, which is just not the move. So I think the trade-off is worth it. So I have a scene that's just for scalars for every part is already in here. And then there's a bunch of different displayers. We have some stuff for the hoop, airflow that was just left over from cooling, asking for different flow through different points. We have some streamlines set up that you can move around. There's some streamlines that are lines, there's some streamlines that are points. So like this line tracks the air going over the head, but you could, I think, which one's our point? Oh, we don't have a point one here. Well, you could create a streamline with a point. Oh, this one is a point. Why did it say load lines? Oh, it's the displayer's lines. I'm a silly goose. You can also change these to tubes if you wanted them to be thicker. I don't like ribbons. Ribbons just look really weird to me. We can go back to lines. But yeah, this is a point seed. Oh yeah, that would just be in the derived parts section. That tells you it's a point seed here. You can look at all the things I set up there for displayers. But so you can see how this is one of the things we really want to look at. And this is a good indicator that this rail probably is helping out to mitigate the amount of spillover coming off of this. However, there's another way we can look at that spillover, and that's with the Q criterion. And this is a description, if I remember correctly, between shearing and changes in momentum. Basically, it's just a way to show the vortex generating. You can see it's not perfect because there isn't a vortex generating over the nose cone. There's just a large shear force as it's impacting there. We can see here on the front wing that there still is an effect. I really need to save one with this drag down. Every time I have to drag it down. Please, oh, nope. That is not what I wanted. That's still not what I want. Go in somewhere in between, please. This is what I was talking about, the visuals not being perfect. Okay, they can at least drag you now. Let's grab you down there. And then, can I grab the top? Nope, okay, it's okay. I just won't save this. But you can see how spiraling over, cascading over, and really the easiest way, I mean, you can look and compare this sim to it. You could open up another sim, look at them side by side, and get the views oriented to be the same and see which one's bigger. Uh, Probably a better way to do it is to just look at your plots and go, okay, my coefficient of drag on this one is this big on my rear wing. On this other one, it's this big on the rear wing. I want the smaller one, right? And that's the one you'll iterate through. Although it could be that this is a more promising design that just needs to be tweaked and tuned. So there's also a scalar scene for individual parts. If you don't want to look at the whole car, you can look at just the front wing here. You could switch that out by just going to scalars and changing this part to be a different part. You can also add more things here. I guess I put in the streamline 3 here to look at the airflow going underneath the front wing and see how it separates and whatnot. There's also a vector parallel scene, so parallel to the flow, and you can just move this by going to the derived part plane parallel, and then we want the vector one, so it's V. And you can see here that there's an offset, so I can just move this to, let's just say 0.5, and it should update in here. I need to go negative 0.5 apparently. Negative 0.5. Oh, that's 0.5. Yep, now we see the wheels are being cut into, and we can see the end plate. There's a bunch of skin drag there. If we go farther in, we should be able to see one of the front wing airfoils and the car. Oh, actually, that one. And the rear wing. And so you can see all this different flow and how it interacts, and you can iterate through. I'm just going to set that back to 0 for the time being. You can also attach a parameter to that. If you come into the automation tab, that's where the parameters live. I might start creating parameters for rho, for your density and your viscosity, and just add them here so it'll be easier to tweak, but that's not in there yet. I'll probably just make something pop up on the screen now if, or add an annotation to the comments if I've done that. We may also have a perpendicular, or a vector scene that is parallel or perpendicular, so you can see the, oh yeah, inside that. So we also have, yeah, one perpendicular. So you can, again, go through and you can see the vortexes that will be shedding off of like end plates as you iterate. Oh, I closed drive parts. That's why. Give me back my drive parts. So this is a plane, perpendicular, and it's a velocity flow. And let's just put that. Come on. Oh, you're really not loving me, huh? Let's put that 0.25 back. And so yeah, now you can see how there's air spilling over like this end plate, and same thing here, spilling over. And You could even create several of these planes and then just iterate through them in different spots. Another powerful tool, this will be our last thing to discuss, hopefully. I can get her to scroll down, please. Probably should close out of this scene and we'll just leave the parallel open. It's getting mad because there's a streamline showing. Let's just click off into the void. Yep, there we go. So if you come to tools here, you can go to screenplays, and I have two screenplays. This one's with parallel. The perpendicular one is a little bit more useful, but what this does is if we have in here, there's make a whole different tutorial on screenplays, but what you should know is that you can just click play here, and it will give you a basic scrubbing of moving that plane in and out of the car so you can look at a ton of different views. These take a minute to record on the supercomputer. I had a job that created screenplays just for, actually, let's stop that, not just pause it. They created screenplays in parallel after solving. I think this should be run separately on just an individual sim just because it takes so much time and effort. It doesn't require much resources, but it just is a long time waiting. So also stay tuned to that improvement, or if I haven't done it, then there will be no comment on the fact that I've done it, and that's something that you can do in your free time. But that's really it. That's our brief rundown on how to utilize the supercomputer to quickly iterate through full car designs. Please leave any comments if there are any questions, or if you're at BYU, just and I'm still here, just reach out to me personally, talk to me, hit me up on Discord, and I'd be more than happy to help. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you have a wonderful day.